meeting room.
Okay, Chair, we're live.
Thank you, Jan, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. Before we go on to the substantive matters today, I have to read out some preamble, so I shall do that before we commence the meeting properly. Before I formally start the meeting, I confirm that this meeting is being held in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and the Licensing Act Hearing Regulations 2005, which allow councils to make their own arrangements for licensing subcommittees to hearing matters in connection with premises licenses. I will go to each committee member to confirm that they can hear and be heard. So if you could verbally confirm that you are able to hear me, and I will in response say that I can hear you. Where practical, please have your video switched on so that you can be seen by other members of the committee and members of the public in attendance. First of all, Councillor Paul Andrews.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, all. I can hear and see you clearly.
And are you, Councillor Andrews? Thank you very much. And Councillor Tony Johnson.
I can see and hear you clearly, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson, and I can hear you. I'd also like to request that officers who will be present throughout the meeting can confirm that they can hear and be heard. First of all, Caroline Marshall, the clerk to the subcommittee.
Yes, Chair, I can hear and see you.
Thank you, Caroline, and I can hear and see you. Alice McAlpine, our legal advisor.
I can see and hear you, Chair.
And I can see and hear you. Alice, good morning. Jenny Priest, our technical support officer.
Yes, I can hear and see you, Chair. Thank you.
And are you, Jenny? Good morning. And finally, Fred Spriggs, our principal licensing officer.
I can see and hear you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks. Could you make sure your mic's close to your mouth, Fred? We sometimes have trouble picking you up as you move your head about. Don't get too gesticulate about it. And
I'll stick it on then. Is that better?
That's better. Thanks, Fred. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's meeting. The council is video and audio streaming this meeting live on the internet and making a recording. The recording forms a part of the public record of the meeting and will be available on the council's website. Please note that it is the council's preference that where you are able to do so, you have your video also switched on. Please remember that what you say and do in this meeting has a global reach and your words and actions should be chosen carefully. Can I also remind members to ensure that they are wearing their headsets while listening and speaking during the meeting? This will ensure the audio quality is of the highest possible quality and background noise is sufficiently reduced. There are some additional points for members and officers to be aware of. As part of our meeting etiquette, all microphones apart from mine will be placed on mute at the start and during the meeting. I will run through the agenda in the customary way. When you wish to speak, please use the virtual hand, which can be usually found on the bottom of your desktop. Please remember to unmute yourself to speak and then mute again when you have finished. Please do not raise your physical hands, as I do not wish to miss anyone who may wish to speak. Please note that the chat facility has been switched off to ensure that members' contributions can be offered through the spoken word and for the public record. Please ensure all mobile devices are switched off to prevent interference with the audio and video systems. If any attendee loses connection, the meeting will be paused to ascertain if the connection can be restored quickly. If it is not possible to recover the connection within a reasonable amount of time, the meeting will continue for as long as a quorum of committee members remains able to hear the proceedings and to be heard. If you plan to leave the meeting before the end, could you please indicate this in advance? Are there any questions from members, officers at this point? Okay. So I will formally now open the meeting and formally welcome all, and thank you to all attendees, members of the public who are attending and the applicants. Item 1 on our agenda are apologies for absence.
There are no apologies for absence, Chair.
Thank you, Caroline. So there are no name substitutes if we are all here. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Are there any Schedule 1, Schedule 2 or other interests declared on items on this agenda today? Please you could do this by raising your virtual hand, and then I'll ask you to speak to notify the nature of that interest. Any interests, members? No, no. Okay. Okay, so that's the preamble, ladies and gentlemen. So before we start item 4, could I ask that everyone for the second substantive item on the agenda is moved into the waiting room. That's for Dom's Bike Stop.
Okay, Chair, that's been done.
Thank you very much. So we have today an application to grant a premises licence in respect of Ledbury Town Football Club in New Street, Ledbury, HR8 2EL Echo Lima under the Licensing Act 2003. We have representations from the Licensing Authority, which is Mr. Spriggs, then public representations from Mr. Barisha, and you are, yes, you can see you're here, Mr. Badisha, and then from the applicant, Mr. Onions, who's representing Ledbury Town Football Club. I'll then, during the process of this, ask members if they have any questions for the representations as they've been made. So if I can call on Mr. Spriggs to give the views of the Licensing Authority. Fred, please.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, this is an application for a premises licence in respect of Ledbury Town Football Club. It has undergone a 28-day consultation period, which concluded on the 5th of May 2021. And there were relevant representations made, which means that the matter has now been brought before the subcommittee for determination. The application is for live and recorded music, performance of dance and anything of a similar nature, and sale and supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises. And that is Monday to Sunday from 11 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the morning. In addition to that, there is late night refreshment for all days of the week, and that's from 11 o'clock at night until 1 o'clock in the morning. And there's also a non-standard timing, which is New Year's Eve for all the licensable activities from 11 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the morning. There is a set of conditions which have been proposed by the applicant, which you can find at Appendix 2 within your papers. There was one representation from the Environmental Health Officer, which is at Appendix 3, and that was agreed, and that was to remove live music outdoors and to be played only indoors. There's been 4 relevant representations from members of the public which have been accepted, and those can be found at Appendix 4. And there was one representation received from members of the public which was rejected as not being relevant. There are a number of legal implications which are contained within your report, which obviously your legal advisor could advise you on should you require further clarity. There is a right of appeal by any party involved in the proceedings to the Magistrates' Court within a period of 21 days. There has been an extensive consultation with all responsible authorities and members of the public living within Herefordshire. That is the application, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spriggs. Are there any questions from members on Mr. Spriggs? No. Okay. So, Mr. Badisha, your representation, please.
Hi, good morning. So thank you for allowing me to sort of speak on behalf of the local residents, and I believe some of the residents are actually on the call. I guess I've already raised concerns around the request to grant the license. Some of it has been shared by the local residents, where the complaints of noise and with the local families being sort of, you know, those very young and small, there's no sort of sound barriers or anything else that are associated to the football club that accommodates the noise, especially if you're going to allow the week to run until sort of 1 a.m. And I think, you know, with myself having to get up sort of early during the week for work at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, I find those sort of points a little bit sort of concerning, I guess, having previously experienced noise of a similar nature from the club itself, having had venues in the past. And I guess I just wanted to raise it on behalf of some of the other residents who probably haven't had the opportunity, given that they saw the notice, but there was only advised through people kind of like myself who'd actually kind of go up and made them aware. So I don't think they've made actually kind of representation. And I think you've also received some of the objections, I guess, to the current licensing sort of elements that you're allowing to potentially proceed up until sort of 1 o'clock during the weekdays, and on a weekend, which kind of runs quite late into the evening as well. So that's what I wanted to, I guess, just reiterate my points that have been highlighted in the letters that have been written in as part of my objection and a few others.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Badisha. One question from me that relates to the pub at the end of the road. Do you get any disturbance from that at all?
No, because they haven't hosted any venues or anything else. And like I said, I literally live across the road from the football club, and there's been occasions where, you know, it's become a bit of a car park as well, where it's extended from the football club. So it's about, you know, the noise and also the potential for overlap and of other issues associated to that, which actually builds tensions in the area. And I'm a great supporter of, you know, supporting the local community, but I think there needs to be a balanced view in terms of the licensing and allowance for, you know, what's been suggested. And on occasions we, you know, like I said, like most of the residents, we sleep with our bedroom windows open to allow that such late in the week, and I have to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning is where I've got the concerns.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Badisha. Any more questions from members? No, okay. Thank you very much. So we now turn to Mr. Onions as the applicant. It's your turn to convince us.
Hi, good morning. So based on Mr. Badisha's comments there, really our application was based on sort of worst case scenarios or best case scenarios, if you like. Really, that's never going to happen. I think we took our licensing application from the format of, excuse me a second, I'll just mute whilst that's picked up, sorry. Apologies there. Off another football club in the county. So our application followed theirs really. I'm not sure which club it was. We took advice from the licensing department there at the council. So really, as a club, we're not going to be open as they used to be throughout the week. We really are only going to be open on a Saturday for matches, on a weeknight when there is a match or if there's training. And we're more than happy to you know, close at 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock in the evening. It won't be going on until 1 a.m. That was really just to cover any instances where we might just sort of a worst case in the future. Even at the weekends, still going to be the same thing really. We're looking to close at 11, but 1 a.m. was just to cover ourselves just in case really. And the same with the music as well. And there will be very few occasions where we do plan to have any music. It may be small entertainment, a presentation evening, or another sort of charity event to raise funds for the club. That was all. So, I mean, we're very open to conversation and to adjust the terms of the license around our neighbours and around the rest of the community, really.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Onions. The reason I'm a little concerned about this, because when I read the application notice, it would have appeared to me that you were trying to start a social club as well as running a football club. So I think if it struck me as that, then I would suspect that some of the residents nearby had the same kind of fears, and that seems to be echoed from what Mr. Badisha was saying. Do you have channels of communication to speak to the residents?
We haven't. I mean, I did put it to our chairman to sort of, when I put the notices up, to knock on a few doors and explain the situation, to try and alleviate any concerns before they happened. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So we're now in this meeting, I suppose.
I would say to you from the experiences of working with this committee that the art of getting a successful venue running within a community like that is communication. So I would recommend that if we do grant, should we grant you a license, that you open those channels of communication pretty quickly. Members, are there any further points? Councillor Johnson, Councillor Andrews?
I was going to ask, if I might, Chairman, we've no reason to disbelieve what Mr. Onions has just said, that their intention is to run it to 11 o'clock, etc., etc. Nonetheless, of course, if the license is granted as presently requested, we've no way of knowing what would be the case in the event of a change of ownership of the club. The subsequent owner with the same license might have different views. So it's possible, of course, that when we're discussing this, we might think of various, and it's only a possibility, but we could be suggesting some forms of limitation to protect the public, not against anything that Mr. Onions is likely to get involved in, but perhaps subsequent owners.
Thanks, Councillor Johnson. Alice.
Sorry, Chair, can I just remind you that you can only consider the matter in front of you. You can't try and protect against the what may be in the future.
Yes, indeed.
You must take the applicant on what he says.
Yeah, thank you.
I say that, Alice, because from my reading of the revised Section 182 guidance is that we can take in some of the likely impacts of that. And
from this owner, from this applicant, Chair, my concern is that Councillor Johnson was wanting to protect against a change of control, and that would not be relevant to your considerations.
Okay.
Thank you, Alice.
Councillor Andrews?
No, well, what Councillor Johnson just said, to be honest, he sort of echoed what I was going to say, to be honest. So yeah, let's see what happens. You know, I am concerned for the local residents, and you know, I think a license conditions, let's have a discussion, see what we can come up with, and talking to the residents is the most important thing.
Okay. Mr. Spriggs.
Yeah, Chairman, I'm just wondering, listening to what Mr. Onions has actually said, does he wish to possibly change the hours which he's applying for? Is he asking us to consider an earlier terminal hour possibly in the week and at the weekends?
Could I answer that one?
You may, yes.
Yeah, so we're more than happy to revisit and adjust the hours that we've applied for. Just going back to Councillor Johnson's point with sort of future owners, correct me if I'm wrong, but with me being a licensee, any future owners would have to apply for a change of the designated premises supervisor. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Onions.
So again, that they would have to, sorry, again.
I'm debating in my mind whether we should adjourn this particular application at this point and allow discussion to take place between the licensing authority and you, Mr. Onions, to come up with a revised set of timings.
I mean, yeah, we're happy to do that. Happy to also go and speak to the local residents, Mr. Badesha, and other neighbours that he's been in contact with, and sort of agree terms with them before coming back to yourselves.
That would be extremely advisable. So I'm looking to members, Councillor Andrews, Councillor Johnson. Would it be your wish that we adjourn this for future discussion?
I agree with that, Chair.
Councillor Johnson?
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that entirely, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Caroline, can we fix another? Caroline.
As this is now part heard, I will need the same subcommittee to finalise this. So if the applicant and Mr. Bashira could confirm that next week would be convenient, I published today. Alternatively, I do have a 4:30 licensing subcommittee being set up for the 12th of July. That may give both sides more opportunity to speak and to open up the lines of communication as suggested by this subcommittee. If that is convenient for all, I would recommend 4:30 on the 12th of July, subject to everybody being available.
That's fine by me. Tony? Yeah. Paul?
I'm just looking in my diary, Chair. Sorry.
Okay.
Bear with me 2 seconds. Yeah, that's fine.
Mr.
So-
Onions, could you confirm that that would be convenient for you as the applicant?
I mean, yeah, we're keen to get things sorted as soon as possible, but if we need to wait until July, then so be it.
And Mr. Bashir had his hand up, so I'm going to take that as consent to the 12th of July as well.
So that being the case, ladies and gentlemen, and I thank you, Mr. Onions and Mr. Badisha, for your patience on this. If you could get those lines of communication open, and we will come back here on the 12th of July, and hopefully we can come to an agreement on a licensing conditions that we can all agree. That then is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Can I ask that the live stream?
Okay, Chair.
Thanks very much. Welcome back, everybody. I will just go to members of the committee again to make sure they can be seen and be heard. Councillor Paul Andrews.
Good morning again, Chair. Yes, I can hear and see you clearly.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews, and I can see and see you. And Councillor Tony Johnson.
Loud and clear, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Johnson. I can hear and see you too. So now we come to item 5 on our agenda. This is an application of granting a premises licence in respect of Dom's Bike Stop, West Eaton Nurseries, Stoke Prior Lane, Leominster, HR 60NA under the Licensing Act 2003. The speakers for this application this morning will be Mr. Spriggs, our Principal Licensing Officer, then public representations from Mr. and Mrs. Pritchard, and then a representation from Mr. Dominic Howe, who is the applicant. Then there'll be questions from members as we go through. So, Mr. Spriggs, if you could give the outline of the application, please.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, this is an application for a premises licence in respect of Dom's Bike Stop, West Eaton Nursery, Leominster. It has undergone a 28-day consultation period, which concluded on the 28th of April 2021. The matter has received relevant representations. They are brought before this subcommittee for determination. The application asks for live music indoors and out, recorded music as well indoors and out, and solid supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises on all days of the week from 11 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. There is also a request for late night refreshment on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve from 11 o'clock at night until midnight, New Year's Eve and 11 o'clock at night until 1 o'clock in the morning. And there is a non-standard timing as well for live and recorded music, self-supply of alcohol to midnight Christmas Eve and 1 o'clock in the morning New Year's Eve. Under the Live Music Act 2012 as amended, an alcohol licensed premises can have live and recorded music from 8 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night for up to 500 people without the need for these activities to be on the premises license. There is a set of conditions which have been proposed by the applicant, which could be found at Appendix 2 within your background papers. There was one representation from the Environmental Health, which could be found at Appendix 3, and that relates to the control of noise and vibration, not causing a nuisance. There have been 3 relevant representations made by members of the public, and those are found at Appendix 4. There were 5 letters of support received after the end of the consultation, and those have been rejected by the authority as being out of time. Following the end of the consultation, the applicant contacted West Mercia Police to ask if any complaints have been received regarding the premises, and West Mercia Police's reply can be found at Appendix 5. There are a number of legal implications which you will be aware of, and which your legal advisor can give you further advice if required. There is a right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court within a period of 21 days for any party, and there has been an extensive consultation in respect of the application made with the responsive authorities and people living within Herefordshire. That is the application, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spriggs. Are there any questions from Councillor Andrews, Councillor Johnson for Mr. Spriggs at this point? No. Okay. So now we turn to Mr. and Mrs. Pritchard. Could you just tell us where you live in relation to the premises, and then what your representation is, please?
Yes. Hello. Good morning, everyone. I am Mrs. Audrey Pritchard, and have been living at Eaton Farm in the hamlet of Eaton for at least 22 years or so. It has been a very desirable place to live, very peaceful in the countryside, but not far from the facilities Leominster has to offer. I have a small caravan park, therefore holiday makers, also tenants that share my homestead. But even with these activities, it is still very peaceful and quiet. Regarding this proposal, the outdoor music venue, open-ended, practically any day, all day, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. If this is passed, I will feel totally imposed upon. Others also, I imagine, there are 10 or 11 homes in this hamlet of Eaton, near the proposed venue. I myself, living just across the narrow country lane, and the other 10 or 11 homes very near also, plus a nursing home quite near too with elderly residents. It's not going to be quiet music, outdoor music to entertain people, large or small groups or crowds, whatever the case. It will not be subdued in tone. They will all be wanting to hear, probably dance and shout as well. We have had a small amount of this outdoor music in the past. You can certainly hear it. It does travel through the air, sometimes with human voices very loud too. It's okay for those taking part. If it's their kind of enjoyment, probably for all those concerned, a one-off. We have not objected in the past, as it was only odd occasions. But if this new application goes ahead, for us, living so closely by, I ask you, open-ended, any day, possibly any time, 11 a.m. till 11 p.m., even staying indoors, it would still penetrate and vibrate, as we have known in the past. It would be an endurance, which I feel is very unjust. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Pritchard. Are there any questions from members to Mr. and Mrs. Pritchard at this point?
Not from me, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. So now we turn to Mr. Howell, the applicant.
Sorry.
Good morning.
Sorry, Mr. Pritchard, sorry, did I?
Sorry.
Hello.
I was told I was able to say something as
Yes,
well.
sorry,
Right.
Mr. Pritchard. Mr. Pritchard and Mrs. Pritchard actually made separate representations, and therefore they have their individual rights to speak. Chair.
I do beg your pardon, Mr. Pritchard. That was my error.
That's fine. Firstly, good morning. My name is Neville Pritchard. I'm son of Mrs. Audrey Pritchard, who you just heard from. I actually do live in Hereford, but I'm here to support her. And because I do have an interest in her home and the business interests which are there, such as helping with the maintenance, grass cutting the caravan site, helping with the farmland, and being involved with all of that, as well as assisting with the adjoining letting property when issues occur. Looking at the Hereford licensing policy, the opening statement says Herefordshire is a mixed commercial and residential area with many areas lying in tranquil rural surroundings whose amenity Hereford Council has a duty to protect. Quote, whilst the applicant has generally been a good neighbour and entrepreneurship is undoubtedly a good thing, taking an objective view, the application for this licence is inappropriate to the location, the property as a discontinued nursery, and will significantly harm the amenity of the dozen or so houses opposite and the old people's home immediately to the north, who we note have also objected. The proposal would permit the applicant to broadcast live and recorded music every day in the open air consistently until 11 p.m. It would allow serving of alcoholic drinks to bikers who are the chosen clientele. Drinkers going to a pub in the country are expected to have a nominated driver to stay sober while the rest drink. The public safety aspect of supplying alcohol to self-driving bikers departing directly onto the two busiest roads in the locality, the A49 and the A44, seems to defeat common sense. It is unclear whether there is a stated maximum capacity proposed, because it looks like it could be up to 500 people, or any risk assessment on how any difficult customers could be dispersed from the premises, as it's an open area with various access points. The applicant runs what is originally a nursery, and in common with such enterprises, ancillary cafes are usual. Changing the name to a bike stop doesn't change it from a discontinued nursery, and it is certainly not a permitted entertainment venue, and the proposed license is incongruous with the original use. The intensity of use envisaged is a complete alteration of the premises to a D2 use class, complete with a raised stage area. People who move to a village close to a pub may expect some late noise, and that's their choice, though this will often be confined within a building. The surrounding residents and pensioners in the care home have not moved next to a pub, but to a riverside area of relative tranquility. The proposal is for an open air stage for rock music events and broadcast open air music. And as a place for cultivating plants originally, there are limited buildings on the site. Hence, there will be no attenuation of sound and ongoing bass vibrations. No obvious steps are proposed to prevent public nuisance by installing soundproofing or limitation devices. The applicant has occasionally held parties with loud music, so the impact on the surroundings is proven. The proposed site rises to the east, as you know from the way the road goes, so the indicated position for the stage serves as a podium for the noise source. No doubt the applicant will suggest live music on stage and playing of music will be intermittent and controlled, but if a license is granted, the fact is it permits continuous noise only subject to the control of the perpetrator. This is Stoke Prior, it's not Woodstock. I note from the council website that Herefordshire Council receives up to 1,000 noise complaints a year, with a 50% increase over the summer months. the Environmental Health Service Manager, Charles Yarnold, is quoted on the website saying, "People have a right to enjoy themselves and some noise is inevitable in work and at home during the summer. We are asking that residents and businesses consider the noise they are creating and think about how excessive and prolonged noise could be affecting their neighbours' quality of life. Noise can be a real problem if it keeps someone awake at night when they have to work the next day, or if it stops them enjoying life at home during the day." And that's the quote from Charles Yarnold. Now, this is the opportunity for the Licensing Committee to ensure that appropriate regulation shows the Council does not add to the problem that it seeks to control. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pritchard. Are there any questions for Mr. Pritchard from members? Councillor Johnson. You're muted, Councillor Johnson.
Sorry, Chairman. I was going to ask Mr. Pritchard, you'd mentioned both the lack of mitigation because of the absence of buildings, etc., and the vibrations and so on. And I wasn't sure whether, from what you said, whether or not you would be in favour of granting a licence if such sound attenuation was provided.
If the attenuation were to end up with no noise being transmitted outside of the site, then that's not a problem. But the fundamental is that it's an open air venue, and I don't think it's possible when you've got an open air stage and an open air site in effect to attenuate the noise in that location. And it's quite clear from events which have occurred there before, then it is not only loud outside of my mother's neighbouring premises, but it is loud inside with closed windows.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Andrews, any points? Okay. Mr. Howe should be able to hear us. Can you hear us, Mr. Howe?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
Good morning. Could you give us your presentation then, please?
Yeah, I can understand Mrs. Pritchard's concern about live music and just the way it's worded from 11 to 11. But that's not true. I'm not trying to change my business in any way. What I'm trying to do is make it more efficient. I can tell you now, I won't be putting on live music every day of the week. In actual fact, that's not really what I'm wanting to do. I'm wanting to carry on what I'm doing and just make the business more efficient, and hope, well, I will be taking on next person, extra staff in this, or an extra 2, but 1 full-time and 1 to work weekends. But I'm not putting on live music. It's just this is for local alcohol to be served with food. The nursery is still running. We've had no issues in the past, as you know. I've been doing this for 9 years now, so we've had no complaints. And I'm wary of what's going on here with my neighbours. I mean, we all want to get on, and it's just time for me now. I've done 9 years of this. I've been very careful, and I just want to improve it and step up a bit in these bad times. I mean, COVID-19 is testing everyone at the moment, and you have to diversify a bit. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howe. Have you opened any lines of communications with your neighbours? Have you spoken to Mrs. Pritchard, for instance, before about your application?
Yeah, I did. She had concerns, and I said all I'm wanting to do is run my business a little bit better. So I'm not going to change it. I'm not really changing it. It's just that I don't want any waste. So every time I've done any events down here, I've always got a license off the council, and everyone knows what I'm doing. Most of these events, I've done weddings, birthday parties and stuff like that. So it's not me putting on every weekend live music. We did the Echo Fest, and that is for people with special needs. We raised money for people with special needs. They used this venue to do their event here. I got a license for that, and the history shows I'm doing it okay. I'm doing it to how it should be done. I'm very sensitive. I've got a decibel meter here, so if there is live bands on, which I'm actually trying to steer away from that, then I can go down to the back barrier, which is opposite Mrs. Pritchard's, and just listen out. And if the sound engineer is up here, I have to say it needs to go down a bit. So we're very aware of it. I mean, the last thing I want to do is not get on with my neighbours. You know, I've been living here now for 25 years, so I'm the longest person locally born as well. So, you know, I don't want to fall out with anyone. I just want to, you know, carry on my business and try to make it more efficient. Try and give people, I mean, we've got a lot of, in Leominster, a lot of Airbnbs. So we get a lot of people out of there coming from Leominster, having a bit of food. It'd be nice to serve more alcohol with the food, you know, because every time I got to do that, I have to go and get an events license. And I used all my events up not last year, but the year before. So this makes it more efficient for me. Local neighbours, you know, we all want our neighbourhood back a bit, you know. This is a nice hub. The Lamb at Stoke Prior is shut down. And, you know, there's a lot of people in Stoke Prior that use this place. You know, it's a meeting point. It's a little hub. It's a nice area. It's a, you know, this is what we need. It's needed. Okay. I want to make Herefordshire nice. Herefordshire is one of the best counties in the country. And this country at the moment is doing so bad after the COVID. It needs building up. It needs, you know, people with passion to, you know, keep the tourism coming here. And I think what I've done here is absolutely amazing. And I share it. It's not just bikers what come here. It's meant to be shared by everyone. So I bought this land probably about 26 years ago now. And it's not just for me. It's meant to be shared with other people. And what I do is create, and I love what I'm creating up here, and so do a lot of different people. And I've got a passion for it, and it's my livelihood. You know, we have 4 people working here at the moment, and I'm looking at taking full-time person on and someone to work part-time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howe. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Howe, thank you for your comments and your explanation. I'm slightly confused, genuinely confused. I find it difficult to see how providing a raised stage, etc., makes your business more efficient. You used the word several times. I wondered if you could expand. It seems to me that if it's all going very well, why would you want to change it, really?
Okay, so the stage is, at the moment, it's somewhere where you can sit. It's a stage when I put on live music. The only live music I put on was really for the echo, the people with special needs. And that worked out well. And if I do weddings and stuff like that, so it's not used very often. Right. The only way I want to make my business more efficient is when I get a license, an entertainment license for alcohol, I don't want to be throwing any away. So normally, you know, when you're looking at ales and stuff, you've only got 3 days on that. So if I get an entertainment license from Friday to Sunday, under 500 people, it means if I haven't sold it by then, I'm going to be throwing it away. And I really can't afford to be doing that. You know, it's the variety is the spice of life, and we're buying a lot more local stuff, local breads and stuff like that, and that's the way forward. So I don't want to be throwing or wasting any alcohol. You can't do anything 3 days a week. You've got to be doing it. You've got to be focused on doing it, you know, 5 days a week. So,
thank you, Mr. Howe.
Thank you.
Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. With this, I've been obviously looking at the documents, what we've had through in the plan, and trying to see it, you know, on a piece of paper is very hard. Seeing in the flesh would be a lot better, seeing the lay of the land, as I call it. So so we can actually see what the setup's going to be, where the stage is going to be, or is, shall we say, if it's already there, and proximity to the nursing home and all that, and see what there is there. You know, I hope we could do something like that. That's my suggestion anyway.
Thank you.
You're here to support business. We don't like waste. None of us like waste, but also we need to see the lay of the land in my eye. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Andrews. That's a good suggestion. We will now retire to our private meeting room to discuss this application. Could I ask Jen, therefore, that the live stream be paused?
About good food.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
So they can hear me and be heard. Councillor Paul Andrews.
Hello again, Chair. Yes, I can hear and see you clearly.
Thank you very much, and I can hear and see you. Councillor Tony Johnson.
It's loud and clear, Chairman. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, and I can hear and see you. Thank you for your patience, everybody. We had a discussion around this one, and we have decided that we cannot really make a sound decision on this without going to see the topographical lie of the land and the premises. So it is the decision of the committee to conduct a site visit on the 18th of June at 1500 hours, and then the decision-making committee will reform on the 12th of July at 1630 hours. That is the decision of the committee on this application. So we will hear both those today, again on the 12th of July. Thank you for your attendance, everybody, and thank you